glow around the candle. And that is a very, very important part, because if you don't create that, your candles will look plastic and fake. But the one thing to remember is you don't want this part of the candle glowing brighter than this one. Remember, this part is illuminated because of this light, so this light will always be just a little bit stronger than anything else in the composition. Hello guys, and welcome back to my studio. Let me tell you a little bit of a backstory to this tutorial. As you know, I have a Patreon channel where I post all the extra videos and I take requests. So for this tutorial, patrons from one of the tiers got to suggest all the different ideas for this tutorial, and the rest of the Patreon group got to vote on their favorite idea. So guess who the winner is? Fire and flames. That's why today I will show you how to draw a candle flame. For this tutorial, you would need soft pastels and a dark piece of paper. I'm using a pastel mat, but you can use anything that you have on hand. Okay, so to be able to draw a candle well, let's have a look at the burning flame first. Now, as you can see, I actually have a very useful diagram for you guys. Now, I will pop this diagram on Patreon for those of you who are there. Keep an eye on this. It will just explain about the heat of the candle. Now, of course, you guys know that the flame color would vary depending on what is actually on fire. So you can get blue flames, even green flames sometimes. Today, let's have a look at the plain old candle. You know, we're not gonna go anything crazy. So let's observe it for just a moment. You've got a really, really bright flame. You've got orange hues and yellow tones. And you also get just a tiny little bit of blue on the bottom. If you have a burning candle in front of you, and you can get a variety of flames, you know, from dancing fire to little flickering and also, you know, all sorts of things. And also remember, when you blow the candle out, you get a whole bunch of smoke. I'm not going to show you how to do smoke today, but if you are interested, let me know in the comments down below, and I will make another tutorial that will focus just specifically on that subject, so we can give it a good fair chance to shine. Okay, let's start. So for this drawing, I'm going to show you how to create a composition out of few little thin candles, just to show you a little bit more in depth on what you can draw, you know, with larger flames and smaller flames, to give you a little bit of a variety. So to start with, I'm going to use an orange. Those of you at home sketching, you can choose a darker color. The reason I'm choosing this is because it will be really hard to see for you guys on the camera. I bet even seeing this would be a little bit of a trouble. Okay, so I'm just going to mark a couple of them. And I'm going to make them so that they're not standing, you know, perfectly straight. Okay, so I've just marked those thin little lines, almost like tree logs, you know, that have been chopped off. Next, I'm going to just bring in a little bit of light to the top parts of them. So I'm still using the orange color. I'll make this one curve just a little bit. I'm also going to go for the darker reddish kind of a sort of burgundy brown, and just add a little bit of the shadow. Now what happens is that if you're in a completely dark room, you will find that areas that are really close to light are really illuminated and the color almost goes through them, but areas that are further away from the light really softly just blend into the background. Probably wouldn't be exactly the same situation if you were in a really well lit room. Then you will be able to see the candle straight away. Now I'm just going to use the smudge stick, but you can always use things like cotton swabs or even your finger if your finger is small enough. And blending the color out. And do the same on the other three. Now, if they have blended out too much, you can always go over with more pastel. I will just a little bit. Also, when you're drawing this area, remember to observe any wax which is dripping. Sometimes with some candles you don't get any dripping wax, but with some you get quite a bit. So remember, this is the candle that's sort of a little bit bendy. And you know what I said about the wax? This is the time to do it. It usually goes down like tears, like little drips, and then as soon as it moves further away from the flame, they firm up. So this is what you kind of want to go for. Sometimes they drip, and as the candle keeps burning, you know, the flame comes up quite close, so you can get maybe one there that kind of, they almost start to look like a lip when that sort of a flame burns the candle down. And again, for a little bit of a quick smudge. At this stage, we don't want to overdo the light color. We want to be able to, you know, still add brighter and lighter areas. Now, just a little bit more brightness, and only on the candles that are standing a little bit closer. So candles that are further back, they wouldn't be as bright, wouldn't appear as bright, but candles that are a little bit closer. Also remember when you're drawing that your candle is a three-dimensional object, so you can see the actual roundness of the candle itself. So if you are looking from the position where you can look in, then you can do this. Just add a little bit of an oval, like an ellipse, to show the actual shape. And one more thing to remember, when you've got a flame, if the candles are standing right next to each other, then the flame from this candle will be illuminating the side of this candle. So if these candles are standing side by side and we've got a flame here, you will be getting a little bit of a highlight on this side as well. So make sure to pop those in just a little bit. Not as strong as you would get it at the top, so reserve your lightest candle areas for the top part of it. Okay, and now again, just a quick little smudge. Now the important part, let's look at the flames themselves. And for this part, I'm going to use just a little bit of something to help me keep the artwork intact and prevent me from smudging it everywhere. You can use any kind of paper, even just printer paper would do. So if we focus on this, we would see that we have a little wick. It is usually black. I'm just going to mark it like this. Then we've got the bottom flame, which is usually quite dark and quite blue. And then we've got a little bit of the orangey, the warmer flame. Then we have the bright, sort of the yellowy white kind of a color happening. We also have a little bit of the orangey red kind of a glow around the candle. And that is a very, very important part, because if you don't create that, your candles will look plastic and fake. So what you want to do, and this is the bit that we are going to really work on, is you want to get a bit of orange and then a little bit of red on the outside. So remember, the further it is to the center of the candle, the brighter the actual color is. It's very important. Once you figure that out, you can draw any kind of fire, any kind of candle. Although if you want me to make you more tutorials on maybe how to draw a bonfire or something like that, please let me know. As always, a little bit of a smudge. This is the one where you really want to smudge into the dark background. And if you pay attention to your candle, if you've got a candle in front of you, or if you're working from an image, the biggest halo of light would be just around there, not on the bottom here, as many people do it when they're drawing a flame, but just on the sides and a little bit on the top. A little bit more red. And first let's start working on the darker areas. So we've got the blue flame on the bottom, the candle that I'm working on at least. So let's put a little bit of lighter blue and darker blue. And smudging in between. And next, just a little bit of red to give us a really good transition into orange. Yellow. And then white. But instead of using really bright white straight away, I'm using this cream color. So it's just a little bit off-white. And I'm going lightly. Smudging. Remember, you don't want to go with a really strong shade to start with. You want it to be quite blurry and quite smudged in. But still keeping its shape. You don't want to smudge it, you know, everywhere and so that it completely loses its shape. You want it to still be quite recognizable. Next, I'm going to go over and create the same look for the other candles to get them all up to speed with this one. Sometimes you might see quite a bit of blue in some flames, but in some you almost don't see any. So always keep an eye on what it is that you guys are seeing. The main thing is that you really soften the outside glow into the background. And again, I'm going to go over with a creamy sort of a whitish color of white to create the highlighted flames. Now I have chosen to do quite a few candles just to show you a little of the variation that you can create within your little candles. So for this one, just going to be a little smaller than that first one. This one. It's going to be just a little bit sort of a flakier going up on the top, and this one's going to be quite a bit smaller and a little wider as well. And that's the thing, the same candle can be all of these candles depending on what moment you are looking at it. So that's why I think it's quite important to show you guys all the different variations so that you can feel brave enough and you know exactly what to do no matter what kind of candle you're going for. If you are enjoying this tutorial, remember to go and check out my Patreon page, where you can have so much fun with different voting situations, with submitting your images for me to create tutorials based on those, and then have them as a giveaway sent to you, as well as all the extra tutorials and lots of different tricks and hacks that are not available here on YouTube. So I look forward to seeing you over there. Now a little bit of a smudge again, just like with the previous one. Okay, let's have a look. We've got quite a bit of light going on. Just need to make sure that we give them a really good smudge. And now we are ready for the next step. So the next step is to go in and look at the color variety that we get right next to the wick, because it's quite a beautiful situation there that's happening. This area is so small that you can't really see things from the first look, but if you just pay a little bit of attention, you would be able to notice reds just in the middle there. They are blended out with the orange, which we will apply next. Orange just happens to be just above the red, and as I said, almost blended into it. Next we have yellow. And now let's have a look at some blue. So these ones have quite a bit of blue, this one and this one, and the rest just have a little sort of a dab of it there. So next, just again the smudge stick, but this time rather than mixing everything together, we just want to blend the colors. We don't want to remove quite as much as we did before, you know, when we were prepping the first layer, because this time we want to start building those colors up so that they're nice and bright, just like the real little candles. Next, let's look at the bright light. Now again, I'm going to build it up by using first this off-white, creamy white, and then we will be able to really focus on the center and really bring out that brightest white. I'm still not going full force. I'm not filling all of the tooth of the paper, just to make sure that there's still some space and some texture for me to apply the white. Again, go in for a bit of a smudge and a blend. Another thing we need to pay attention to is the change of color just around those little licks of flame. And how do we show that? We need again to do a very similar thing that we've done here. Just a bit of yellow on the sides like this. Now this part will add a lot of warmth and glow to the light. Right next to it, we're going to place orange. And again, just a little bit of the soft blending. You see, I'm just doing a couple of strokes like that to blend that in. I'm not smudging it outwardly like we did before, because this is something that you want to stay really close to the flame. Next thing is we need to determine which candle do we want to be the brightest. If you're working on 1 or 2 candles, they can be absolutely the same, but with so many candles, we do want to choose the ones that we want to focus on. So I want for this one and Yeah, let's start with this one. This is the one that I want to be the one of the brightest ones. And just using white full force. Going in right in the center of what we have prepped. So you see, all you need to do now at this stage is really highlight the area. You don't need to do any blending, any smudging. It's been already all done. So now you can just fully go in and add the brightness. Kind of like almost as if you were to turn the volume up on that light. Now with other ones, like for example this one, I still want to add just a little bit more of the light, but just in the center there, because I don't want this to be an overpowering candle, just a little bit of the light there. This one, on the other hand, you know how I told you I want to show you all different ways to do the candles, so this one is going to be quite bright on the outside, with quite a big darker sort of a hole on the inside, and then the flame just flicking up like that, like as if there's just a quick little gust of wind. And what do you guys think we should do with these ones? I think we should still brighten this a little bit, but maybe not as strong, and make this candle a little bit more blue than the other ones as well. And same with this one, just a tiny little bit. Also, to smudge it and make these a little bit darker than the other ones, I'm going to use my smudge stick and blend in the color with the existing shades that we've applied previously. Just like that. Also you can blend it in with those yellow sort of outlines on the sides. And we can leave these out. Now this one, I just want to drag this out like that. And that's the beauty of the soft pastel. It's so easy to create little flecks like this. This one we will just leave it as a little sort of an oval idea, sort of like a classic candle. This is the kind of a shape you usually see on Christmas cards and so on. This one quite soft, and these ones are quite bright. As I said, let's add a little bit more blue to this one. There we go. Now next important thing is right there. Yes, what is the thing that's burning? It's the little wick. The wick is usually quite dark. Well, at least it stands out dark. You know, it's surrounded by the fire, by the light, but it is really dark. So for that, what you want to do is you want to actually use a little bit of black. Okay, so we are going, let's start with this one. Just going to create that little light line there, and then grab a tiny little smudge stick and blend that in. Again, just a little bit, and blend that in. And remember, when you're working on the wick can be a different shape. Sometimes they're really straight, sometimes they sort of curve a little bit, so that can be quite interesting to sort of add in as well. You can soften them, you can make them quite strong. Sometimes the wick can sort of come out a little bit of the candle, and in that case it starts to create its own little lights. So you might see that it actually is quite bright on its own, like that, because you can actually see it burning outside the flame. Okay, now I'm just going to carry on, and sometimes the wicks are quite short as well, so you don't really see much. You just really see that sort of almost like a shadow right in the middle of the flame. And that's what I want to create with this shadow, with this candle. Okay, one more thing. before we finish, and that is paying a little bit more attention to the candles themselves, you know, the waxy bits. We've just sketched them through and created a little bit of the backlight, you know, just a bit brighter over here and sort of going into nothing, into the blackness. But some of these would be just a little bit brighter. So for example, especially the ones that are either closer to us or the ones that have brighter flames. So for that, what you need to do is you need to just create a little bit more light. So the areas that were a little bit darker, we want to really create them, make them lighter, so almost like bringing the light just a little bit further down. Remember, when you've got a composition of very similar things, the one thing that you can create to make it really boring is to make them all the same. That's why we've created different sort of angles and things like that. So the same thing can be done with light. Some of the candles can be a little bit darker, some can be a little bit brighter, some have a little bit more of a red glow, and some maybe a little bit of a sort of a bluey glow if you want. Always pay attention to the shape of the candle. Sometimes you can get a really high lip on the back side of it, and then that can be eliminated, especially if you're working on a larger candle. So these ones, it's quite hard to see, and usually you don't get the really high lip, you know, because they're so small, they kind of burn quite evenly. But if you're working on a really large candle, you know, sometimes you can get those candles with few wicks in them, and so you get, you know, maybe 3 or 4 candles in one. At this stage you can still give it a little bit of a smudge or leave it as it is if you don't want to sort of soften it or make it any darker or anything like this, so you can just leave it. So see, now this candle already stands out compared to these two just because of how warm in color it is. Now let's go for the very strong highlights. I'm going to use white, but the one thing to remember is you don't want this part of the candle glowing brighter than this one. Remember, this part is illuminated because of this light, so this light will always be just a little bit stronger than anything else in the composition. Really soft little strokes to bring a bit more of the highlight to the top of it. Take this a little bit further on the side, you know, the little bit of a light from this candle here as well, just tiny little bits for highlights, definitely on this one. And these ones. Some of these wax tears would also be catching a little bit of the light, especially on the areas that pop out just a little bit, you know, the ones that have a bit of a lip. So here we go. Make this one a little bit brighter too. Here we go, we've got a really cool candlelight composition, and now you have learned how to draw fire. How's that? I really hope you guys give it a go, try it out, because as you can see, it's easier than you think, especially when I have given you this cool formula. And now just to add cool little bits, we can just give little flicks here and there, little sparkles of yellow and orange. Now if you've made a lot of mess, you can always use your putty rubber to tidy up bits and pieces. And you've created your own artwork. Something like this is perfect for anything. Halloween, to maybe you might like to have an image that you can relax to or meditate to. It's just perfect, because as I look at them I can almost hear the crackling of a candle. And now this artwork is going to go to the patron who has suggested the actual idea of drawing flames. So thank you very much for the suggestion, and thank you to everyone who voted as well. Hey, are you enjoying my videos? If so, remember to subscribe and press the notification bell to be reminded of any new videos that would come up. Also, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up for the algorithm, and don't forget to join the Patreon club with extra videos, requests, and so many other things. I would also like to say a big thank you to all of the patrons who are already on Patreon and who are already supporting this channel. I hope you guys have a great day, and as always, thank you for drawing with me. But if you still don't want to go, here are some more videos for you to check out. Mwah!